I guess. Mr. Frank.
So, do you have enough people here? Okay, all right.
Everywhere you go.
We're now going to gavel this meeting to order. This is our combination meeting of Cincinnati City Council Healthy Neighborhoods and Cincinnati Public Schools Board. You know, we actually, City Council started doing this years and years ago, and we got this started again in the last 2 years. Our goal is to meet quarterly to see how Cincinnati City Council and our CPS board members can collaborate and help each other with solutions to common issues. And so it's wonderful to have this collaboration. I'm just really grateful that everyone's here. So let's do some quick introductions. And as I said, you know, we've been hearing about snow coming tonight. We are not going to keep you all night. We're going to get out of here. So anyone who wants to speak, please fill out a yellow card and give it to our Clerk of Council, Sheila, our Clerk of Council's office, represented by Sheila Andrews. Thank you so much, Ms. Andrews. She's right here. And we'll have public comment after all of the presentations, so you can fill out your card anytime during this session. Also, so let me just announce everyone who's here, and we'll just start with John Vogt. I'll just go around. John Vogt is from our law department. Gerald Fortson from DCED, our Department of Community Economic Development. I want to make sure I get our departments correct. Then we have CPS school board member and now Vice President Mary Weinberg. Next to Mary is Council Member Mark Jeffries. Next to Council Member Mark Jeffries is CPS board member Brandon Craig. Next to board member Brandon Craig is Council Member Scotty Johnson. And then sitting here with me, we have CPS board member Dr. Kareem Moncrief Moffitt. I'm Vice Mayor Jan Michelle Lemon Kearney. Here's our CPS Board President, Eve Bolton. And then next to Eve is Cincinnati City Council President Pro Tem Victoria Parks. And then almost next to Council Member Parks is Council Member Anna Albee. Did I get everybody? And we have out in the audience, we have our Superintendent Ironetta Wright, who's going to present a little later, and many others. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. We're going to start with a motion that our CPS board members need to make for their treasurer pro tem, I think. And so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kareem Moncrief Moffitt.
So we do have 4 board members here, and we need to, as a order of process, have a treasurer pro tem amongst the board members. So I'm going to make a motion that we nominate board member Brandon Craig to be the treasurer pro tem for CPS.
I second. And roll call.
Roll call. Let me
I'll
just
be
do
happy
it.
to do it. Aye. Dr. Moffitt,
Aye.
Mr. Craig,
Yes.
Vice President,
Yes.
thank you. Appreciate it, Vice Mayor. Now we're legal.
Okay, now you're legal. This is great. That's always good to be legal. So we're going to reverse a little bit. We're going to change the order of our agenda just because Councilmember Mark Jeffries also has another engagement in the community. And so let's go down to the item about driver's education. What item is that? That is on the agenda here. So,
F.
oh, it's item F, driver's ed training. So President Eve Bolton and Councilmember Mark Jeffries, please take the floor.
Excellent. Well, first of all, thank you. It was not my intent to switch the agenda around, but I was just going to come for about 20 minutes. I just have to go up to Evanston. So yeah, I'll tee it off and then Eve can jump in. I think we're very familiar with this issue, and it kind of is in line with a lot of the discussion that we'll have around school zones and safe school zones, which is addressing the need as a city for education around driving. So we all see crazy driving ourselves as individuals. We know last year when CPD was doing traffic stops, around a third of the people who were stopped didn't even have a license, which is a huge challenge. And so obviously years ago, we used to have driver's ed, and it's not just a CPS thing. I think holistically we need to think about how we bring driver's ed back. And so the discussion that we've started to have is, how do we think about this issue? There's obviously costs involved, but there's really, if we remember when we got our license, there was like 2 parts to it, right? There's the sit for the video, and you look at the video and you're reminded of what the rules of the road are, which I think many people need to have. And then there's the in-car driving as well, which is obviously more challenging because it's costly and it's not something that a lot of kids can afford. So Eve and I have had a couple conversations about this, and she has suggested a couple of potential options. So this is just an update of conversations that we've been having. Nothing firm to report just yet, but I'll leave it to Eve to weigh in on some of her thoughts.
Yes, thank you very much, and I appreciate really the interest. As everyone knows, parents and family members and neighbors really, I think, feel really strongly that more and more of our time, if possible, could be spent learning life and all the skills one needs in life. And previous years, before all the testing and so many other things that happen in a school day now that may not have happened 10, 15 years ago, there was time. Maybe there were more home ec classes, or there were more business classes, or certainly there was driver training. The school day now, it's really hard to do that. So if we were to be able to work it out, it would have to be a collaboration between the city and the district, but also private partners. As a matter of fact, ABC today that'll be speaking has a model program, I think, out of Aiken. So that might be the way, sort of that triangle of support, but perhaps we could supply the classroom space. Perhaps we could allow kids to get credit maybe during intercession, Madam Superintendent, is one of the things that they could be doing. So there's ways that we could do it, but never will it be like it once was, but we certainly could do better together on that issue, and really appreciate the initiative.
I wanted to add too that I know AAA used to do training in the schools, and we spoke with one of their communication partners, and they said that AAA is interested in having this conversation. So we'll just connect both of you. Cheryl Parker is actually the person with whom we spoke, so they're interested in talking about this. So thank you so much. That's wonderful. I remember those days of watching videos in the trailer. So.
It's dating yourself.
I am.
Talking about a long time ago.
I'm definitely dating myself. Okay, so let's jump up to A, and this is an update on transportation, Metro and CPS dismissal times, and this is President Eve Bolton.
Thank you very much, and we'll take just a moment to talk about this. As many of you know, our high schoolers depend upon Metro for the transportation to and from our high schools. And indeed, in years past, there were extra routes that allowed for much more access, if you will, and scheduled access, as well as more scheduled dismissal and kids getting home right away. Having been out on the campaign trail and having watched the transition, if you will, from, how shall we say it, Metro extra routes to now using regular Metro, what I've heard, and I think our schools would verify it with all the work that the superintendent's done and everybody else has been doing in this transition, one of the areas where we have trouble is really at dismissal time, largely because at dismissal time, hundreds of teenagers are released at the same time from various schools. And depending upon where those high schools are located, they may be being released into a business district, as they would be up in Hughes, or they might be being dismissed, hundreds of them, being dismissed into residential neighborhoods. And one of the things that is of concern to us also is that some waiting for a bus, not only outside, and this is the issue that came up outside when people were talking in terms of Woodward, for example, the idea of that kind of proximity to difficult, more traffic patterns, what have you, let alone other issues. One of the things that's come across is that, is there a way that rather than having maybe just the regular efforts regarding Metro, is there a way we could concentrate on dismissal that would be a relief for the residential neighborhoods as well as the business districts? And it's more pronounced in the business district because of stores and what have you. And with our own schools, and I'll rush through this piece, the idea that if the kids are staying, that does require us, properly so, to provide supervision within the buildings and also on the campuses. And the superintendent feels pretty strongly that there be grown-ups there supervising, but that's beyond the school day and what have you. So maybe if we could work together, and again, another kind of three-pronged effort with Metro, the city, and also the district, perhaps there's a way that we could alleviate some of the pressure of dismissal time and also kind of assure families that the kids, as soon as school is over, can get home, because they are teenagers. Having spent 36 years with them, they're given the opportunity, they'll find another place to go. So we're really worried about the safety, but also the, how shall we say it, the efficiency of that for our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Comments, questions? So I would just say, you know, President Bolton, give us a takeaway, something that you want us to do in terms of this issue. What do we need to do? What steps?
Well, I'm going to take advantage of the vice mayor, because the vice mayor has been one of our champions for a number of years, not only for all of our kids, but also regarding the metro piece. And maybe a takeaway would be to engage. I know our superintendent has a great relationship with the metro leadership, but I think it would be great if we kind of talk about this dismissal. And if that could be coming from both our superintendent and our vice mayor, I think that would be helpful, because it is a major problem for our neighborhoods, business districts, and residential. So thank you.
Okay, we're happy to actually hold that meeting. We have, all of us have a really good relationship with Daryl Haley and Sorta. They've been really responsive. And just, you know, we're just very happy with the working relationship, you know, in lots of different areas, including schools.
Great.
I just want to give a shout out to them. Their record, as I understand, for getting our kids to school on time, it's like 95% get there early when they take Metro. And so, you know, we want to give a shout out to them. They've really been wonderful. So we'll call Mr. Haley and have this discussion and see what ideas they have.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, consider that done. All right, next, we're going to talk to Rebecca Beach, Director of Project Connect. And Ms. Andrews, there's actually a presentation for her. Ms. Beach, if you wouldn't mind coming on up, please. And so for those of you who don't know, and I think everybody's really familiar with the really essential and fantastic work that Rebecca and Ms. Beach and her crew do for our children experiencing homelessness. My understanding is that there are about 3,500 CPS students who experience homelessness. And I was going to ask Dr. Moffitt to give us a definition, because we were trying to understand, what does that mean? Does that mean you're couch surfing? You know, who's counted? And you told us what that definition is. And Ms. Beach, I was just giving you a chance to get settled, because I know you could answer that question too. But
well, I'm going to share my understanding, but the best person to define that is sitting there. And she can definitely expand. But I was surprised to learn that the definition is much broader than what we think of it as. We just think homeless in that you do not have a physical home, but it's so much broader. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Beach so she can give us the full breadth, and then you all can be just as shocked as I was when she shared it with me.
Ms. Rebecca Beach, and she is Director of Project Connect, and thank you for your work. Really important, just absolutely essential work for our young people.
Thank you for having me this evening.
And you have to speak right into the microphone.
Okay.
These are, I think it's an older system. I don't know what our excuse is here, but we always have tech
Is that
problems.
better?
That's perfect.
Okay, so yes, my name is Rebecca Beach, and I am the program manager with Project Connect, which is a Cincinnati public school program serving our children and families who are experiencing homelessness. I do want to thank you for allowing me to provide some updates following our joint presentation in September. And so actually I did want to give a couple of quick reminders. I was not going to go into all of the same information as I shared in September, but thought it would be important to share the definition of homelessness for educational purposes. And so the McKinney-Vento definition is a lot broader than the HUD definition. The HUD definition includes individuals who who are living either outside or in substandard living conditions or in shelter, whereas the McKinney-Vento definition includes anyone who lacks a fixed, permanent, or regular nighttime residency. So this does include our families who are couch surfing, who are doubled up due to economic reasons, who are maybe staying in hotels or motels or in shelter outside or in areas unfit for human habitat, such as construction sites, We have seen a lot of families living in storage units. And so again, that definition does differ and allows us to provide a broader scope of service. Our program operates under a federal law, the McKinney-Vento Homeless Education Act. This act was enacted in 1987 and reenacted in the Every Child Succeeds Act of 2015, and it does require school districts to remove educational barriers for students who are experiencing homelessness and to reduce equity gaps to improve educational outcomes for these students. I did want to share with you our new mission. Project Connect has had the same mission for the last several years, ever since I can remember. And so this year, we worked with Hamilton County Educational Services Center to revamp our mission to really align with the scope of work we're doing, because that has evolved. And so I haven't memorized it yet, but this is the first time I'm sharing our new mission. So Project Connect collaborates with school communities and stakeholders to identify and remove educational barriers for Cincinnati Public School students and families experiencing homelessness. The program strives to implement creative solutions to eliminate educational barriers and foster educational equity by providing advocacy, building awareness, connecting to resources, and implementing meaningful enrichment opportunities. So I do think that this really speaks to the work that we're doing, because like I said, it has evolved quite a bit over the last several years. And so I can skip through this slide because I already did talk about the definition and was going to recap that for you all. But one thing I didn't speak to is unaccompanied youth, and I did want to mention our unaccompanied youth. These are students who are not in the care of a parent or legal guardian. So just because a student is not in the care of a parent or legal guardian does not mean they qualify for our services. There are two conditions that have to be met, and that is that they meet the qualifications of McKinney-Vento, so lacking a fixed, permanent, or adequate nighttime residency, and they are not in the care of a parent or legal guardian. So for example, if a student moves out of their home because they don't want to follow their mother's rules and they're staying with a friend, they don't qualify because they don't meet the definition of homelessness. But if they move out because mom's boyfriend is abusive and they don't feel safe, then they would qualify. And so we really delve into the circumstances surrounding the reason that they're not with a parent or guardian. So for purposes of this meeting, I really just wanted to focus on our housing data and our numbers. And so the next slide goes into some of our numbers as well as our living locations. And so the first column is where we ended the school year at the end of last year, the 2023 academic year, where we were last year at this time and where we are currently. And so as you can see, our identification has really increased. Last year at this time, we had identified 2,335 students, and we have had almost a 30% increase in identification at 2,954 students. And that was last week when I pulled this data, and actually today I noticed that we have now identified over 3,000 students. And I did want to differentiate students currently enrolled in CPS, because that first number is the total number identified. The second number is students who are currently enrolled in CPS, because we also serve charter school students and students who may have been in our district and were displaced out of our district.
Ms. Beach, just to clarify, so the first number, the 2,954, includes charter students too?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And the 2,128 are students who are currently enrolled in Cincinnati Public Schools. And then the next number is our unaccompanied youth. Our unaccompanied youth have increased almost 30% as well. There actually is a recent HUD study that showed nationally the numbers of unaccompanied youth have increased by about 15%. But again, those are youth who would meet the HUD definition, which is a point-in-time count. So that is when they go out on specific nights and count the number of students or unaccompanied youth who are living outside or in shelter. But we have seen an almost 30% increase from last year at this time to this year at this time. And then I wanted to share some of the living situations that we're seeing. And I wanted to clarify that the living situation is where the student was residing at the point where we did the initial identification. So these numbers can change because living situations frequently change. And so the first numbers are doubled up families. That has increased by almost 500 students. So we're currently serving 2,003 students who are in a doubled up situation. Interestingly, our shelter number was the exact same last year this time as it is this year at this time. And I think that is just because I really gave this some thought, and I think it is because we only have a certain number of shelter beds, and they're consistently being filled. And then the number of students who were living in hotels or motels upon identification last year at this time was 92, and it is 82 this year, but the number of students living in hotels and motels is actually much higher because of the next line. So when our students are unsheltered, we are placing them in hotels. So a lot of these students who are in the unsheltered living situations are moving into hotels through our emergency housing program, which I'll speak about in a little bit. But the last number here is what I think is the most glaring number. So last year at this time, we had 175 students, or sorry, we ended the school year with 175 students who were in unsheltered situations or substandard housing situations. And so these are students who are living outside or in cars or we've seen a lot of students living in storage units, and also students who are living in areas like construction sites. We had a family last week of 7 who was living in a construction site. And so our unhoused families, last year at this time, our unhoused students were 68. And so far this year, we've served 284 unhoused students, which is a 318% increase. So we are really trying to figure out how to serve these students in a manner where they are stabilized and able to come to school. I know that I shared this graph last time, but I wanted to share it again because I did add a data point at the end here for where I project that we will be at the end of this school year. And so I did begin managing the program in 2017, and that year we hit 2,356 students. I do project, based on our current numbers, that we will identify over 4,000 students this school year. And so you can see that this number is rapidly inclining. And that same HUD study that I mentioned a few moments ago indicated that nationally they've seen a 12% increase in homelessness, but a 16% increase in family homelessness, which is really concerning because these are, again, families who are meeting the HUD definition of homelessness, which is living outside or in shelter or in a place that is not fit for human habitat. And so I wanted to also share with you some of the ways that we are trying to meet the housing needs of our families. With our ESSER funds, we were able to hire a housing specialist, and she has currently worked with 569 students this school year, which is almost double the number of students that we worked with last school year. And we did have that position in place last school year. As you can see, last year at this time, we had served 257 students with housing support, and we have now served 569, which exceeds the number that we ended the year with last year. And some of the ways that we support students are by providing emergency hotel room stays. We actually partner with the Quality Inn and with Upspring Cincinnati to provide this service. And so when our families are living outside or in substandard living conditions, we can provide them with an emergency hotel stay, and we really work hard during that time to get them into shelter or some other housing solution. We have a partnership with Cincinnati Metropolitan Housing Authority, where we are providing referrals for families that are expedited. So our families are getting housing choice vouchers, usually within 30 to 60 days. Last school year, this time, we had referred 119 students for this program. This year, we've served 198 students, and we are going to request an increase in the number of referrals that we're able to do because we are seeing such a need. And then shelter referrals, we have a unique partnership with the CAP line, which is the Central Access Point line, where we have a shared Google sheet, and we actually indicate students on that sheet by level of priority. So if students are living outside, that is a #1 priority for us. They're in the most emergent situation. And unfortunately, students living in their cars are actually considered to be less of an emergency because they are in a car, which sounds crazy. And years ago, that would, it was so rare that we saw a family living in a car, but now we are seeing families who are actually living outside. So we share that sheet with the CAP line, and daily they go through and put our families into shelter spots as they open up. And so that's been a really great partnership for us. This link is not working, but I wanted to go into some of the ways that we have kind of improved our services around housing support. And I will send a link for this community resource guide, but we have developed a community resource guide which lists all of the emergency shelters, housing programs, rental assistance programs, and community resources around the city. We have been able to increase the number of nights that we can provide emergency hotel stays for from 3 to 6. This is actually because the federal Department of Education is allowing us to do so. So allowing families to have 6 nights in a hotel has been really beneficial because it gives us more time to get them into shelter and or into some other housing solution. And so that's been a great opportunity to be able to provide for our families. And it also gives our students a week where they are somewhere stable and they can go to school and not have to think about where they're going to go each night. And so,
Ms. Beach, may I just interrupt to ask a quick
Sure.
question about that? So the limit is 6 nights, and then the family has to find another place to stay, and then can they ever come back for another 6 nights? I just wondered.
so we provide 6 nights per school year, and that's based on the restrictions around the funding source. But we sometimes provide additional nights through donor funds. And so if a family has nowhere to go, we will tap into donor funds that we have in order to provide additional nights. But usually we are able to get them in either into shelter or in find, a family member somewhere to stay during that time. So I cannot think of a time where we've actually had to send a family back out into the streets. We've also begun working with the Community Action Agency and the City of Cincinnati on eviction prevention. This is not typically our wheelhouse. We're usually working with students once they become homeless. But we are trying to work with families to prevent that homelessness from occurring. So I know this is not a large number. We just started working very closely with the Community Action Agency this past fall. And so far we have had 4 families who have been able to stay in their home through this partnership. And so we consider that a win anytime a family is, able to prevent homelessness from occurring. And then another thing that we're doing is trying to build a network of landlords who will accept Section 8 vouchers or housing choice vouchers, because we know that there is a shortage of affordable housing. And so we have been beginning to build some partnerships with landlords who will contact us when they have spots open or apartments open. And so we're able to get our families into those living locations. And so we're hoping
Okay, I'm going to have to stop you one more second and go to our law department, Mr. Vogt. So we get this question a lot. Are landlords allowed to look at source of income or use that as a way to deny tenants? Because my understanding was that they can't decide whether or not they're going to accept housing choice vouchers, or they have to. But is that, can you give us an update, or we might have to get it later? Just let me know.
To the chair, that sounds right, but we need to confirm that and get that to you later.
Okay, we're going to look into that because we get that question a lot. And my understanding was landlords cannot look at source of income or cannot use source of income. So they can't say, like, we don't accept Section 8 vouchers. But let's check on that to find out. Okay, thank you, Mr. Vogt. I appreciate it. Ms. Beach,
Thank you. I would love to get clarity on that, because that
Vice Mayor, we're here.
Oh, and I'm sorry, yeah, President Pro Tem Parks.
A landlord has to qualify for CMHA, which means that they have to go through classes, and they can't be forced to accept vouchers.
Okay, well, let's find out from our legal department. As someone who accepts Section 8, I've just never denied anybody. They, people have called and said, you've got a 3-family. Do you accept Section 8? I'm like, sure. I thought everybody would. So I've never questioned it, but I've never been to a class either. So we'll check.
So you have not been certified?
Okay. I've been inspected, though. I mean, Section 8 comes out, they inspect your property, which I love. I think that's great, because if something's wrong, it's a free inspection. They say, hey, this needs to be fixed. You fix it. I mean, so you've got a wonderful place to rent so that people have a healthy, safe place to live. But I've never been to a class, so I'm not sure how. So maybe I'm not in compliance, but we'll find out. Okay, Mr. Gray.
I just, again, in my past work life, dealt a lot with this, but so there is an ordinance that's been in the books since the 70s, actually, that dictates that it's illegal to deny someone solely based on their source of income. Now, the difficulties with that is how do you enforce it within the way the ordinance is written? But the other part to it, to Pro Tem Park's statement there, is that there are certain restrictions into what qualifies you to be able to have a house that's for rent under the housing choice voucher system. And so in some ways, some of the inspection requirements, some of the continuous portions of it are the other parts that create the delay and the inability for folks to rent. And so I think it's great that you're working with CMHA to also work through getting people through those processes earlier. When you have folks who are willing to, or who are actively trying to bring in those folks.
Yeah.
But it is a challenge in that process, and then it also, if you're going to deny somebody, you can find other ways to deny them besides just source of income. So that's the other part of how do you enforce that as the basis of which they were being denied.
Yeah, so I know people can actually, can find, I guess, sneaky ways of getting around the law, but I don't think, but I think you're confirming what my thought was, that landlords don't have the right to deny housing based on source of income. So our law department's going to confirm that, but that was my understanding too, that, and so, yeah. So hopefully that is correct, and so that would be good for us to know and for the public to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think for purposes of what I was really trying to share here is that we're really trying to build a network of landlords that we have relationships with who will actually reach out to us when they have vacancies, and we're able to help our families, because a lot of our families in shelter do have housing choice vouchers. They just haven't been able to find housing.
Okay.
So thank you, and I'll love to hear more and clarity.
We will.
On that.
And I was going to say that's something that the city council's been talking about too, is because this is on a different topic, but it's related. If someone gets a vacate order because there are problems with their housing, there's money to help them, with the down payment and with the security deposit and with the rent. But and a list of the landlords, but they don't really know which ones have available housing. So
Right.
They find that they're calling and calling and calling and calling. And so our Human Services Department is looking at a way of, is there something the city can do to help instead of someone calling, 200 places to try to find a place? Like, here are the places that are available. And that's how that whole issue also came up about, can anyone say, we don't accept Section 8? We're
Right.
hoping that's, that they can't. So we'll get a lot of that answered. And so I think that would be really helpful.
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you. And in our community resource guide, we do have an interactive map that will show neighborhoods where, specific neighborhoods with landlords who accept the vouchers. So that would be great information to have.
Okay, great.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ms. Beach. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, you're fine.
That was a good discussion. Thank you,
Yes.
everybody.
And so,
Councilmember Parks, I'll check on the classes.
moving on from our housing support, I just wanted to touch again on some of the other services that we offer. And I won't go through all of these because I know that I shared this last time. But we do have a resource center where our families can come and get whatever they need for school, from uniforms to laundry kits, food boxes, Metro passes, backpacks, really anything they need. And we always find a way to get families what they need, even if we don't have it. We do have several partners who help us to really increase our capacity to serve our families. And some of our additional services are just our mobile preschool enrollment services. We also have parent and caretaker programming at our shelters. We have an order ahead food program that has really expanded this year, especially with our multi-language learner population, where our families are able to order food online and come and pick it up at our resource center. So we have myriad services that we offer. And again, I won't go through each one of them. I did want to highlight some of the things that we've been able to do with our ESSER funds, which we know unfortunately will end at the end of this school year. But we're recently onboarded 7 academic advocates to place at our schools with the highest numbers of students experiencing homelessness. And so these are part-time positions, and they will just provide an extra layer of support for our schools that really have a need. They'll be monitoring grades, attendance, and providing resources, as well as some enrichment programming. They are part-time positions and contracted with activities beyond the classroom. Our housing and shelter specialist, who I mentioned throughout this presentation, who's doing phenomenal work in the area of housing. The McKinney-Vento law does require that we serve students 0 to 5 and connect them to resources. So we've contracted a part-time early learning coordinator who works with this population and connects students to CPS preschool programs, Head Start. She heads our kindergarten readiness program at our shelter. And so that's also been great for our program. We also have a part-time multi-language learning coordinator. She does assessments for all of our Spanish-speaking families. We are serving almost 500 students who are Spanish-speaking students at the moment. And so that's been a great resource because we want to make sure we're providing the same level of service to these students. We are partnering with CPS Athletics to make sure our students experiencing homelessness have no barriers to participation in athletics and extracurriculars. We have a tutoring program at our shelter, at Bethany House Shelter, which is our largest family shelter, Monday through Thursday. Several enrichment programs, a parent group, again, our mobile wellness, and we are about to embark on an outreach campaign where we will have billboards around the city so that we can make sure that families know that we're here to help and support them. I would be remiss if I did not mention our partners. We have so many partners that really increase our capacity to provide services. And I know I've mentioned several throughout this presentation, but the Free Store Food Bank has been a great partner in our Order Ahead food program. Community Action Agency, the City of Cincinnati, we've been doing work with the Eviction Prevention Program. They've also been a great support, especially during the holidays with our families. The Legal Aid Society, all of our family shelters, the Lighthouse Youth Crisis Center, Upspring Cincinnati, and there are several more, but I just wanted to highlight some of the key partners who we are working with. And then looking forward, we know that the ESSER funds will be going away. As of now, that's what we know. And so I just wanted to indicate some of my priorities for sustainability. I am looking for grants and additional funding sources to be able to maintain some of these services. I think that the housing specialist position is critical to our families, and so I really hope to be able to sustain this position, as well as our early learning coordinator, our MLL coordinator, our mobile wellness program, the shelter tutoring, our parenting program with Beach Acres, and really important to me is continuing to be able to provide funding for emergency hotel stays. So I am looking for grants to be able to continue this service because I do think it's really critical in stabilizing our families who are really in the most serious conditions. And so that is, these are some of my priorities in looking ahead for our program.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much
You're welcome.
for your work and for the presentation. Let me turn it over to my colleagues. Okay, Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, yes, thank you very much for your really for working through it appears to be insurmountable odds that just keep coming with the projection of the increase in homeless students, that increasing. If I may ask, how much was the ESSER funding?
For our program, I don't know the number exactly offhand, but I think it was about 1.4 million over the course of 3 years.
Course of 3 years.
Yes.
Okay. And right now, it appears the only saving grace is going to be looking for this list of funding possibly coming through. I'm just astounded. I really am with the figures and the presentation of what's going on with so many of our children that attend Cincinnati public schools. That's almost 10. Is it fair to say we're talking between 10 to 12% are living in these conditions?
So if we were talking specifically Cincinnati public schools, it's a little less than 10%, but because that large number includes our charter school students. I think it is about 8% of our Cincinnati public school students. But yes, it is a high number for sure.
Thank you for your work, really.
Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming tonight. These numbers truly are gut-wrenching. I'm curious on slide, what is that, 6, where you have the table. When you have the kind of last year, this year numbers, are you all tracking if it's the same students over again or if it's new people? What's that look like?
So we currently do not, we track that in our notes so we can see it, but it doesn't pull in our data. And we are embarking on a new data system. And I've asked that is something that we're able to capture. And so I am working with our IT department so that we're able to capture that data in a report. Because right now our data dumps each at the end of June. And so the only way that we can see if we've served them in the past is through our notes. But we do have a high recidivism rate for homelessness. We have families who will get housing and then lose housing year after year.
Thank you. Yeah, because that's what I was wondering is when we think about you get these folks into shelter for whatever time immediately, you know, what ecosystem are we plugging them into to keep that from happening again? And I don't know if you can share more based on the services you all provide or what your partners do.
Yeah, I mean, so we really do rely on our partners because we are not a housing organization. We're just kind of hitting that, you know, initial immediate need. But the shelters do have housing case managers. And so our families often go into rapid rehousing or some sort of housing program where they do have a housing case manager. And so our families that get into rapid rehousing or permanent supportive housing do have housing support for several years. And so those families are typically more stabilized.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Moffitt?
So thank you. Ms. Beach educates me every single time. I want to ask 2 things. Can you go back to the definition so that we can leave people with what the definition of homelessness is? That's alarming to me. My other question or request is, we haven't talked about mental health supports for our students that are experiencing this level of trauma. What, if any, briefly, I know it's probably a long question, but what mental health supports are we able to provide? What's missing?
Yeah.
And if you had an ask for any potential partners, who would that be?
So that's a great question, Dr. Moffitt. We do have mental health partners in each of our schools, and so we do notify mental health partners when our students are going through really traumatic situations and try to connect them. We also do have some therapeutic groups at some of our schools. So, for example, we have Women Writing for a Change, which is a therapeutic writing group at a couple of our high schools. We have a similar group through Wordplay. At the elementary level, we have some social emotional groups that our school social worker runs. But again, we are serving all 63 schools, so we can't be in every school. So we do really work closely with our mental health partners. The shelter, the Bethany House shelter recently has brought in some evening programming. So once our students complete tutoring, they actually do have social emotional groups that they can participate in. We're actually providing a social emotional group through Beach Acres for our parents that really provides them with a level of self-care as well, because our parents are going through a lot and it's hard to focus on your children's education when your basic needs are not being met. But we are constantly looking at ways that we can provide mental health support to our students because this is a very traumatic situation.
You know, my understanding also, just correct me on this one, is that every school is connected with a mental health clinic. Is that right?
Mental health partner of
A
some
mental
sort,
health
yes.
partner.
Mhm.
Okay.
And so we do work closely with them. We actually have a database that we created where we have the school resource coordinator, the social worker, and the mental health partner, and so that we loop them in when we're working with the students so that we have all hands on that student.
Okay, that's wonderful. That's great. Any other questions or comments? Okay, that's a lot. Ms. Beach, thank you so much. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate the platform and being able to share what we're doing as a program, and hope to continue working together.
And I just wanted to point out there was something here about feminine hygiene products, and I know that President Pro Tem Parks, you know, back when you were on the county commission, you all made sure that I think all the schools had them, and now you're making sure that the city facilities have them, and so, which is wonderful, because my understanding too is that a lot of our girls miss school because they don't have feminine hygiene products, so they really need these period products, and a lot miss a lot of school, I guess several days a month because of this. So this is wonderful. So every school now has feminine hygiene products.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And that is wonderful.
Yeah, and we do have them at our resource center as well.
Okay,
So
that's great.
okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you all. Good night.
Okay, so our next presentation, this is the CPS ad hoc committee's recommendations on school reorganizations, and Dr. Kareem Moffett is going to talk about that. This came up on the agenda because we received several phone calls from residents of different neighborhoods saying, you know, we heard our school was going to close, and so I called Dr. Moffett and I said, so I hadn't heard this. What is this about? And so what you were saying is there are no plans for closing schools. This is a discussion that's going on about how to best utilize our schools and to serve our students. And so it's an ad hoc committee, and Dr. Moffett has information on that.
So I'm going to also enlist the help of my former ad hoc committee member, President Bolton. We're just going to go through really briefly, and the superintendent as well, because it is now, our recommendations are with the superintendent. So Superintendent Wright, would you come up just to clarify anything that's needed? I'm just going to go through what each recommendation is. They are on our website. All of the council members have received a copy of both the report and the addendum. So you have that. You can answer any questions succinctly that come up to you.
Okay, thanks.
But I'm just going to read the recommendations, offer my colleague, President Bolton, to expand, and then Superintendent Wright, to who has actually been now given this charge with putting the pen to the paper on our recommendations. But none of these recommendations call for a closure of schools. So we are charged with trying to be a little bit more efficient. We've made 5 recommendations. The first one is to eliminate the perception and district messaging that CPS is a district of either neighborhood or magnets. Instead, formalize the reality that CPS is a district of multiple educational systems. We talk in our vision and our mission about being a system of schools that will include neighborhood, Montessori, preschools, magnets, international schools, alternative, and satellite schools. So that's the recommendation that we align there. The second one is to analyze and strengthen program access within each corridor or division within the city. We have, and you are welcome to go back and look at the maps from the board meeting, but we've broken up the district into 3 corridors, an east, central, and a west corridor. And that recommendation ties into there. I'm going to give them an opportunity to expand, but I'm just going to go through them briefly. The third is to provide ease of access and a paradigm that produces efficient, sustainable, and reduced transportation costs. I think it is no secret that transportation was really a struggle for us last year. It is hugely improved. Thank you, Superintendent Wright, for her and her team. But we also want to look at being a little bit more efficient with transportation. So that recommendation focuses there. The fourth recommendation is to create middle schools across the district. What does that look like if we were to have, and Superintendent Wright is going to look at, is it a 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th model? Is it a 6th, 7th, 8th model? She doesn't have that data yet, but how does that look if we were to have middle schools? We've already had junior highs long ago. Many people talk about going to junior highs. we're talking about middle schools. And then our last recommendation is to reevaluate policies and procedures regarding the high schools of choice. As it currently stands, we've got students who could live right next door to West High and be bused all the way over to Withrow. That has a cost, and there are a myriad of reasons as to why they choose those schools. Some of it could be legacy, some of it could be the programming. But what does it look like if we were to, what does the research tell us in the cost around high schools of choice? I'm going to invite President Bolton to expand on any one of those areas and Superintendent Wright to fill in any of those other gaps.
I'll start. First of all, I think this is probably one of the biggest efforts, certainly since the facilities master plan almost 20 years ago, to find a way to organize the work that we do with our students and our taxpayers and our families that is sustainable for us financially. And also having had the superintendent's team come in their first year and also do a complete program audit of all of our schools, and whether or not they were authentic, whether or not we had multiple choice or what have you, has been a very important part of this effort. As a old-time native Cincinnatian, I will want to emphasize that one of the big efforts here, first and foremost, is that we are no longer a dual system of neighborhood and magnets. And we're also, because we have systems of school, as Member Moffitt mentioned, in that we have a preschool system. We have a complete Montessori system, PK to 12. We have international, a number of our schools, because of our population and clientele. So it's not that we are limiting choice. In a way, we are expanding the choice and making it aware that they're full systems. But also as a Cincinnatian, and I think some people will agree, we've had to look at our enrollment pools. We have an enrollment pool that is citywide, like a Walnut or SCPA. We have also had the classic East and West ever since we have 75 split the city. But most of us know that this city, this town, is not two sides. It really is three cities, because the people that live in the central corridor, be they College Hill or Clifton, do not see themselves as either East or West. So what we've realized is that you have, you're smiling, I know. What we have now is the idea of three corridors running north and south. And the reason that's important is that we want to offer, especially after the audit that the superintendent did of programming, we want to be able to offer the same kind of programming within each of the corridors. So we're not trained, so a kid doesn't have to go fully east or west and to get the program that they want. So we found that years ago, this even precedes me, we couldn't afford to do it in quadrants, in fours. But financially, we can probably do it in threes. So actually, we'll be expanding more choice, greater access, and if I can say it, we will, I think, be able to improve the quality as well as the programming. And so it's we have to emphasize things aren't going to be closed, might be consolidated. You know, Walnut's not going to change because it's a 7-12. We're moving to 9-12. Walnut won't change. Neither would, let's say, SCPA, or neither would some of the Montessoris. Some of the East Side, West Side schools might go back to being East Side high schools and West Side high schools, but it won't be limiting choice. So it's a very, very exciting thing that we're looking for to be able to sustain it.
So, and the first question has to be, so what's next? Is there community engagement on this public comment? You know, when does the community weigh in?
So the great thing is that we spent 18 months doing this in tandem with the administration and the community. So we came up with these recommendations with community voice already there. We do face some budget cuts that we need to make this year, but we are also looking at how can we be efficient with what we have in addition to what we have to do. So if we've gotten a lot of feedback since we've been a little bit more public because everyone is lobbying for what they want, and that's understandable. But we've heard from the community significantly. Superintendent Wright did a great program audit that also had community voice inside. So I'm going to share the next step is that her and her team are going to take these recommendations and put some dollars to it and see what is it that we can do this year, if any. What is it that would be feasible? We looked at building usage. So buildings that were under enrolled, what could we do there within each corridor? And I, again, invite the public to go back and look at those meetings, 18 months of meetings. We had some wonderful maps by our team that that gave us visuals of the population in each building. What is the programming in each building? What buildings could support a middle school? What grades would that be? But there's so much that goes into that with regard to staffing costs, transportation. That's where Superintendent Wright's team comes in. So I'm going to invite her to tell us what the next steps are.
And good evening, everyone, and thank you for having us tonight. So one of the things that we talked about, this was an 18-month process, as our president and board member Moffitt have shared. When one of the things that we shared as we got the final recommendations at the end of December, our business is done in the public, our work is done in the public, and we shared at that time, and I remember saying very loudly, and I remember doing this when I said it because I knew what would happen next, and it's exactly what's happening now, is that this information to start with are recommendations from the ad hoc committee first. From those recommendations, we then have to take that information as administration, add our input into that, and give some protocol, some processes in terms of next steps and what that looks like. And then the board has to actually decide what it is that we do next. So what we have tried to calm individuals around, I mean, just as recently as today, we were talking to principals about the same, because when you look at the list of recommendations that are there, they're very specific. The committee put a lot of time into capturing the specificity of the discussions. And in that, when you begin to talk about consolidation, or you begin to talk about change in boundaries, or you begin to talk about any of those things, there is a concern around it. And so we're encouraging everyone to first recognize, of course, review the information that's there. Go back and look at the presentations that were done, but also recognize that there is a lot more of a process that needs to happen. And we also have to think about the alignment, as what Member Moffitt shared, the alignment to budget, right? We know in just a minute we'll be talking about some ways that our city partners could help us when it comes to budget, and we have to think about those implications as well. So I think collectively, after having reviewed the information, reviewing it with our team, we're really beginning to put some thoughts around what might be able to be done when, and then what the process for that would look like around engagement at the individual school levels that there may be questions around. But the process is for us to take the information we have, put it together in terms of our thoughts around what we may be able to do when, add the additional meat to that by looking at what the cost impacts may be, and taking that back to the board, so that then the board is then working to give us the okay for next steps or not.
That's wonderful. I want to say, I just applaud you because you, I think you're phenomenal. I mean, you came to Cincinnati and you said, we are going to make all of our schools excellent. And we can see your work toward that goal. And so change is part of that. And we understand if we keep doing the same thing the same way, we're going to get the same results. So, all of us in Cincinnati have to be open to change so that we can get better. And we appreciate you pushing us. The other thing I really appreciate about you is the community engagement process that, you really embrace. To say, here's what we're doing. It's public. It's on our website. We can weigh in. I remember during the transportation discussions last year, you had all those forums and parents came and, what do you all want to see? What are some of the problems? Let's talk about solutions. I mean, I just thought it was wonderful. And so I think that process is great. Things are done out in the open. The community is encouraged to come and weigh in. And as Dr. Moffitt said, these recommendations were made after that engagement, and then more engagement is still being encouraged. So I just applaud you for that. So thank you. And I guess the next step is we'll be hearing more. So just so people know, don't panic. You can still weigh in, and it's a work in progress, and no final decisions yet. But it's all about making our schools better, so that we can serve our students, serve our children in the best possible way. So thank you to all of you. Any comments or questions from our let's say from our panelists, from our school board members or council members? President Pro Tem Parks.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Superintendent, I want to salute you for the work that you've accomplished and just the dedication that you have to our children. It is commendable. And I just highly respect you, and I appreciate the effort that you have put forth, coming in here. This is not an easy place. So I salute you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay. Any questions, comments? Okay. So we're being mindful of our time. We still have a lot more to do, and it's 6:30. So we are still trying to end at 7. Don't worry, we're going to get there. Dr. Moffitt.
Can we just, since we do have another event, or a CPS that has another event, since we have the superintendent there, can we skip down to where she is also presenting?
Oh, absolutely.
To allow her the opportunity to get in and out.
Okay, so Dr. Moffitt, you would like us to go down to school and community needs. Superintendent Wright, we're going to ask you to come back up, please. And we do appreciate your time. We appreciate everybody's time. We know folks have different schedules, so we just want to make sure we can accommodate everybody.
Thank you very much. So one of the things that we were asked to talk about briefly this evening was in terms of additional funding support that could be beneficial for the work that we're looking to do moving into next year. I don't think it's a secret that everyone has some level of deficit as a result of no longer having the COVID relief funds. And for us, those funds are called ESSER. You heard Ms. Beach refer to them earlier. We have 3 specific things, and Vice Mayor, one of them is also connected to G, so I can stay long enough to cover that item as well. And I have a team member here that will do the presentation for it, but I'll be here to answer questions around that. So there are 3 specific areas that we really wanted to bring and have more conversation around. One of them is the conversation for school nurses. So in 2018, the design for how pay was done for the school nurses changed, and costs that the health department was once covering were absorbed by the school district. Over the course of the years, the school district continued to absorb those costs. When we received ESSER funds, we then moved from the number of nurses that we needed to provide support in our school buildings, to provide support to students, to a nurse in almost every school. So we have about 56 nurses right now. And that takes us in terms of a cost for that of about $5.8 million. We know that as a school district, we have to have a certain number of nurses because we have students that have needs and they're medically fragile. And so we have to have those services for them, or they need additional diabetes care or whatever the specific medical need may be. But doing that at a level where it's in every school building, we did that with ESSER at that time because it was highly recommended with ESSER funding, and it was a way for the school district to move forward in that space. With the ESSER funding going away, it is now a challenge to think about how we then are able to go back and fund that entire cost. So we would definitely like to have some conversation around if there is any support that can be provided. And this is a conversation that I have already had with the city manager when we first started talking about the 3 areas that we really needed support in, but asked to share those again this evening. And so that's why I'm sharing them again. So one of them was nurses. That total cost is about $5.8 million, a little over $5.8 million. Within that, there are a lot of built-in needs there. And so one of the things that we're looking at as we're analyzing everything around the preparation for the board of sharing recommendations around getting to a balanced budget, we would look at what the modifications might need to be in terms of that. But prior to, and I want to pull those exact numbers for you. I just had them up. But the overall dollar for that is 5.8. So that's one. The second is the cost for crossing guards. And we know there's been a lot of conversation around crossing guards. I know that Mr. Jeffries, Councilman Jeffries is already gone, but connected to the safety as well is, of course, crossing guards. Currently, our structure is that our school district funds that we pay for the crossing guards, and the crossing guards actually work for the city. So the city hires the crossing guards, the city places the crossing guards, but we cover the cost for them. And so our request for would also be funding for crossing guards, and that is a little over $1 million. It's about $1,086,000 for the crossing guards. The last in our chief information officer will give the rest of the information around this, but it's the Wi-Fi, the technology, and we've talked quite a bit about this as well. When COVID happened, school districts across the nation very quickly had to move into getting devices to children at home. And we know in our city, the community came together. Initially, it was through donations and covered the cost for computers as well as for Wi-Fi services or internet capability at home. There was reduced funding for that, reduced support for that, and that funding is going away. And so right now we are still funding $750,000 for the cost of Wi-Fi for about 3,000 students. The reason that that's so important is because when we know how hotspots work. When the Wi-Fi is provided, it's not just provided for the child, it's provided for anyone that has access to the Wi-Fi. So thinking about that as a service to a family, if that could be something that the city could actually provide as the service to the family, that would also offset the work that we're trying to do right now.
I really appreciate that. So we have been talking about, so those are three things: the school nurses, the crossing guards, and the internet. And thank you so much for coming to the Healthy Neighborhoods Committee, I guess back in December, and bringing up these topics. So since then, we did start talking about that internally. Just so everybody knows, for school nurses, I think the city is paying like 1 million of that, 1 million in addition to the 5.8 million. But the issue is, what more can the city do? And so one thing we were asking for, and so we'll have to continue this conversation, but it's just to get a schedule, the nurses' schedules, and to see our city manager's office can actually look at that and see if there's a way of configuring that in a way that really works so that all the schools are still covered. So we'll have to get more information. She was asking me for that information, so I just said I would ask you for it. So this is my first opportunity to do that. So thank you. So we'll touch base about that. Jumping down to the internet, I just want to, we talked to Lee Fox, who's the CEO of Alta Fiber. I mean, he's super passionate about everybody having internet access. I just have to give a shout out to Alta Fiber, during COVID. Where they jumped in and they made sure that our kids had internet access. They did a lot, some private fundraising for that program, and we were just kind of saying, what happened to that program where there was free internet free to the families for the children who didn't have it? And so he's going to go back and look and just see where that program is. He said that might be something we have to dust off again and get back, because he really wants to talk about this. And so I'm excited that Alta Fiber is excited about serving our kids. He said part of it, one piece of information that he needs is where the children are located, because he said that will impact what services can be provided. And he mentioned, depending on location, some places might need some alternatives like public Wi-Fi or hotspots, places where the children can go. But he'll have more information. Alta Fiber will have more information once we give them more info. The good news is that this is a passion for him and for Alta Fiber. So we've got a good partner. So we'll push forward with that. The crossing guards, I don't really have an answer for. I think it's weird that they're city employees, but I don't know. I mean, everybody knows, the superintendent explained how it works. I mean, we train them, we could continue to train them. I'm not sure why they're our employees though, but this is just a question mark area. I don't know if anyone else has a comment, or this is something we just need to investigate and just see, how can we make this work? Okay, good. Our president of CPS School Board.
I do think it is strange, but it is normal in the suburbs, though, that the city or the village takes the responsibility, largely because we do not have any jurisdiction outside of our own campus. But I know that this one board member would be very happy to be able to, what we pay for, to be able to control. Because in many ways, we could actually build more of a school community around it, as well as we have so many part-time positions that maybe could then start to be more full-time or whatever. We're going to be needing some drivers internally, and so it might give us more of an opportunity to really build a school family if we had control of that. You all have done a great job. We appreciate it, and it's crucial. But to me, I'd like to control what we pay for.
And, in the city, not to say this is going to happen, we're just kind of talking about it publicly, but I think that, our police department does a lot of training for crossing guards, and I'm sure they would continue with that. I think our HR department does some training. I mean, we have some city partnerships, so that's something we should talk about.
So to President Bolton's point, while this is the process in the suburbs in our area, having come from 2 large urban school districts, it was also the same process. And the reason at that time was because of what the president shared, the expectation of where we have jurisdiction and where we have coverage. And in many places, the crossing guards are connected to the police department in the area that they're in some way. So I think that was the way. Now, I think when you talk to the city manager, she would love for us to take on that responsibility. But I do think that we may want to have some additional discussion about the additional challenges that go along with that, just because of placement, jurisdiction, what it is they do, those kinds of things. So opening it up so that we can have additional discussion in that space.
Okay, so we're going to put, CPS board member, boy, getting these titles, CPS board member Brandon Craig.
I just want a quick add on that also. I think the other part too, the crossing guards aspect of it is that in some spaces of where the crossing guards are, they don't just service students who are attending CPS schools. And so I think that's the other thing to just think about in some of the areas where we have, within the district, where we have students from multiple different schools who are still crossing, are using these services as well. And so I think that's another thing. Even if we were to take on some of that burden, how can we think about it in a collaborative way so that maybe around the schools, maybe something more that CPS can take a leadership stance on, but then in other spaces where we have generally had crossing guards available because of the number of students going back and forth, that may not be the area where that is the best place in that collaboration to be on CPS. And so, and I think that's sometimes also a way to ease some of the discussion, because there may be other folks within the district or within other resources who can assist us around the school a lot more than they could in the areas where we have crossing guards on major thoroughways and that kind of stuff throughout the city.
Okay, that sounds good. So we're going to have to come back with that information. Councilmember Albee.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I guess related to the crossing guards is just in general traffic calming. Are there needs of in front of schools for additional traffic calming? So I live on Bramble. We obviously just reopened Bramble, and it's on a hill and people drive really fast on that. So, I'm often why isn't there speed cushions here? Are there other needs that would maybe help calm traffic in addition to making sure traffic guards are?
I would say yes. I know that there's been some analysis that's been done around that and a lot of work that's been done in that space as well. I think about the press conference that we had last year, and I do think that was with Councilman Jeffries at the same time right there in front of West High. And you know, the work that the city is doing and focused on around safe passageways across the board would only have a positive impact on our schools. So when we think about locations around Carson, for example, or locations around Roberts or SCPA, and SCPA is just on a main thoroughfare. I mean, that's just kind of the nature of where the school is, so that causes some challenges there. So I think across the board, there is still the additional need, but there's been a lot of work that's been done in that space. So you see, you know, when I think about South Avondale, right there on South Avondale, right in front of South Avondale, you see the speed bumps that have been put in front of the schools. But when we continue to do the analysis, just like the city is focused on right now, there continues to be work to do in the space.
Awesome. I would love if our office could get in on some of that analysis and see what areas you're identifying. Just to say it, as I was driving in today, I saw a car run a red light to get to the SCPA school zone. So dangerous driving all around.
President Bolton?
To add something, I know we've been strong supporters. I think it was Vision Zero and all this, the traffic calming and what have you. And I know we've shared great numbers of grants together for those specific purposes. But one thing that I would emphasize is that the state does not require the kinds of things that it requires for little people, elementary schools. State has to say to you all, you have to provide all kinds of signage. But for high schools, they don't make those kinds of demands. So it would be great if we, as a city, would find ways to address that, because our teenagers too need protection in these times very much. So that's something to look at for our high schools as well, whether they're in residential or in the business districts.
That's absolutely true, because we've had some tragedies with our teenagers too. And so absolutely, all of our children have to be safe. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. Okay, any other comments? This is another work in progress. We'll have to take a look and see what some viable options are for the crossing guard issue. So we'll keep talking about it, and we'll come back. We'll put all our heads together and come back.
Did you have anything else to add for G?
So we had more of the presentation for G, and I do have a team member, Mr. Gullahue, that's here tonight that was going to do that part of the presentation. If that is not information that's needed, you're good. Okay. If that is not information that's needed, we can save some time in the meeting because a lot of those questions have been answered. But it is in the public document, so it gives us specificity around the number of students that are actually served. Having had prior conversation with Lee, I know that he's very interested in supporting. And I also want to add that doing some work with Duke Energy as well, and working with Amy, there have been some areas where there has been work where certain areas have had Wi-Fi that's been put in the area, so there is a public access for that. So that is happening right now in many of the places in our city. So we're excited about that. But we can get the individual addresses for whatever is needed to pinpoint that. So just let us know who to follow up with that on, and we'll take care of it.
Okay, if you send that to our office, that'll be great, because I told Lee Fox we're going to send that to him.
Great.
And then I know there's someone he's assigned to actually work on this. I'm not sure who that person is. But
awesome.
We'll get it to him.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Wright. And thank you. I'm sorry about the presentation. If we don't need it tonight, let me just say we do appreciate it. As Superintendent Wright said, it is, we are going to file it at the end of this meeting, so everybody will have access to it. I didn't know, since you came, if you wanted to make any comments. If not, we'll, okay. Okay, and please introduce yourself. And let me say, you know, I keep looking down here, and Miss Phyllis Davis is sitting here, and you weren't here when I introduced everybody, but Miss Davis is the administrator for the CPS school board. So thank you so much for being here. I didn't want to leave you out, and I looked down. I keep saying, you know, Phyllis is here. I haven't. Miss Davis is here. Phyllis to me, but Miss Davis is here, and I haven't introduced you. So thank you for being here. Okay, so please introduce yourself too.
Thank you. It's Jeremy Gollyhue, Chief Information Officer for Cincinnati Public Schools. And I would just very, very quickly add some context to what's already been shared by the superintendent as well as Vice Mayor Kearney, that the program did begin during the pandemic, but it is still
And could you
going.
talk a little closer to the mic, please?
Sorry? The program did begin during the pandemic, but it is still currently operating in partnership with Alta Fiber.
Okay.
As the superintendent alluded, there's a little bit over 3,000 students that are currently still utilizing the program. We've continued that partnership. We have contact with Cincinnati Bell or with Alta Fiber that we've been working with on Lee's team as well. So the program does still continue to operate today, and we're looking at how to continue that past this year.
Okay, thank you so much. And I wanted to thank you too, because when I first got on council, I used to call you all the time. It was back in 2020 when the pandemic hit, and I would call and say, what are the schools doing? What can we do? And, you know, at one point you said, we're cleaning up the computers, we're getting them out to the students' homes. And I mean, you were on top of it. So you were great, and you still are. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I never really had a chance to say thank you. I was just a new council member, didn't know where to turn, what to do. And someone said, call Jeremy. It's like, okay. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. And we certainly appreciated those conversations to help with the program.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Wright. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Council. Okay. CPS board. Oh, Vice President Weinberg.
Yes, thank you so much, Vice Mayor. So I just wanted to add on to this topic, since we're on school and community needs, and we obviously had the superintendent talking a little bit about school nurses, crossing guards. And I know for me, as the health and safety chair for this past year, especially at our December meeting, we had a discussion and a conversation regarding education on prevention of substance abuse. And so what I wanted to bring up, and I kind of wanted to hear some thoughts of council, I received a lot of emails, whether it was from parents, whether it was from teachers or other students, regarding reactions and drug reactions of our students when they are at school and they have taken banned substances, such as a discussion of edibles, other type of things. So the question is what can be done within a collaboration of the city and CPS, whether it's the city, the police department, and CPS. And of course, we all remember the DARE program. That was back in the day. It was a great and amazing program. We don't have that now, but what is some educational pieces or some type of campaign? I know that you did a really good job of leading that pedestrian campaign that we had. What would be something, yes, what would be something, I guess, that we could do moving forward to help not only educate our students on the risks, just like we did, I think, in terms of vaping. Vaping was a huge topic. So this has come up, and it came up in health and safety, and they want it to be addressed. So I just wanted to bring it forward to you all and hear your response.
So that's a great challenge for us to collaborate. Our health department, our CPS school board members, our council members, for all of us to collaborate on an educational piece. So let me turn it over for some comments. I mean, don't worry, we're not going to start that here. We're just going to say this is something we have to do, and we'll start getting it done after the meeting. But I just want to hear if anyone has any immediate comments.
Madam Chair.
Okay, our public safety chair, Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very quickly, though, I think one solution or one venue is the school resource officers. School resource officers are equipped, and most of them would recognize some person, unfortunately, that is reacting to having taken a controlled substance. So I think the utilization of our school resource officers is something that we can increase. I think also there's nothing, I'm not trying to, I'm a former school resource officer, so I'm definitely not trying to increase their duties, but I think it doesn't hurt to bring them in and just have sessions sometime in all the schools, from elementary to we don't have middle schools anymore, I'm sorry, elementary and high schools, to just have sessions about the dangers and notifying the teachers and administrators as to what that would look like if a young person has taken a controlled substance. So I think utilizing the SROs is something that definitely could be done.
So, okay, so how about this? So we will talk together about the people that we need to be on this, another ad hoc committee, and pull together some suggestions and then present them to your public safety committee. Okay, give us about a month to pull some things together. So let's do that. How about that, Vice President Weinberg?
That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Okay, all right, we're on it.
Can we say that
Superintendent Reich.
Vice President Weinberg and Councilmember Johnson are working on that together?
Absolutely.
We've given out assignments before, so there we go.
We got signed up on something. Okay.
You might have to hold it down, Ms.
Yeah.
Andrews, or we?
Team also wanted to make sure that I added that drug safety, drug awareness on the school side is also a part of our health curriculum. And it's also work that's done by our school social workers. So I think in support of Vice President Weinberg, it's really trying to make sure that there is a community call to action around what we can do in this space. But I did want to add that on the educational side, there are spaces within the curriculum where a focus on appropriate activity, not getting involved in drugs, so forth and so on, is a part of the curriculum for the district.
That sounds wonderful. And then, you know, I keep hearing about the DARE program and how people liked it. Does anyone know, you know, what happened to DARE? Why don't we have it? And is it something
Madam Chair.
maybe this task force might want to consider bringing back? Yes, Councilmember
Madam Chair,
Johnson.
unfortunately, that was a statewide initiative.
Okay.
And when the state funding started to dwindle, DARE was one of the first things that went. So it wasn't a local thing. The DARE program was statewide, and that's why you saw the demise.
Okay, so maybe elements of that could be reconstituted, but we'll talk about it. Okay.
Yeah, we can contact the state. They've been such great partners and everything else.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's
He
contact
says
the state.
sarcastically, yes, we get it. That's kind of a
We can start it
side-eye
in
comment.
Cincinnati.
Okay.
We started in Cincinnati.
We have some good state representatives locally, at least. So those are people with a lot of sense here from our area. We can't talk about everybody else. So that's a whole nother issue, guys. We're not going to get into that. Okay.
Madam Chair, Vice Mayor.
Okay.
I'm not gonna
Councilmember Albee.
I'm not going to make us linger. One thing I would just add as you all do your brainstorming is maybe think about how to get to the parents, right? So you're thinking about that home environment that kids are in. So if there's education we can do, partnering with nonprofits in the community to do some education with the parents, not just the kids. I'm happy to help with that as well.
All right, great. We've got a team.
Sounds like she's on the team. Let me put your name down
Got
too.
a team. Dr.
Gotcha.
Moffitt has your name. Okay. So we're going to give it a month, and then we're going to come before public safety with the progress report. How about that? Okay. Thank you so much. And Vice President Weinberg, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Okay, so we're moving along. We are almost at the end of our time. We still have a report on safe school zones by Councilmember Johnson and President Bolton. And I think that's the last item, and then we'll hear the railway sale expenditures, which I can talk about quickly. Oh, I'm sorry, Rachel Stallings, activities beyond the classroom. Okay, so we might run 15 minutes over, but I tell you, we're gonna end. Okay, in 15 minutes. Okay, so we didn't forget you. I'm so sorry. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very quickly, safe school zones. Myself and President Bolton have had a conversation reference possibly declaring within a 3 to 5 block radius around every school in the city of Cincinnati, declaring them safe zones. This is something that I'm very interested in, and this is definitely something I think that can be done. We already have state legislation in place that if you are involved in dealing drugs, within 1,000 feet of a school, the penalty is increased. So when we talk about safe school zones, we've already talked about school crossing guards, and we're talking about a number of different things. I believe this is something for all hands on deck. This is something we definitely could utilize the assistance of all city residents in making sure that our young people are safe coming and going to and from school. It's not an impossible task. I think it's something that can be done, and I'm looking forward to the progress and looking forward to the partnership. I am going to have a conversation with Chief Fiji to see her thoughts on that. We've been playing tag back and forth. We haven't had a conversation, but I think this is something all hands on deck, and it's definitely something that all of the citizens of Cincinnati can participate in helping us reach this goal. So safe school zones is definitely something that I am looking forward to getting done. With the school crossing guards also, I understand street calming and things like that, but a human body a lot of times present makes the difference. We are seeing reckless operation of vehicles all across the city and to be quite frank, all across the state and across the country. But a body present, I think, moves the needle to where we need it to be when it comes to making sure our young people are safe going to and from schools.
President Bolton.
Yes, ditto to that, and I'm so excited about the leadership that the councilman is providing on that. But I would also say, as a result of some of the work with ad hoc and the emphasis we've been placing on the 1 mile walking, or what are our enrollment pools for each of our schools, a lot of demographic work has probably been done that would be helpful. We could really figure out what that would mean with 3-5 blocks. That's a very exciting opportunity. So lots of work has been done. It's great to see kind of a confluence of interests coming together. Thank you.
And I'm sure any data you need, the Office of Data here in the city, I mean, they do a fantastic job. So we can get the data you need and move forward. So, okay, another work in progress. That's great to know. Okay, let's bring up a superstar, Rachel Stallings, Activities Beyond the Classroom. She and her team just do an amazing job, and so we asked her to come and present because we wanted people to know about other things going on in relation to our schools and our students. And so, Ms. Stallings, thank you so much for being here. Your title is Deputy Director.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Activities Beyond the Classroom, ABC.
Thank you. And let's see, is that showing correctly?
So again, you have to get close to the microphone.
Okay, is that showing correctly on the screen? Okay. Thank you for the invitation this evening to speak. I'm Rachel Stallings, Deputy Director at Activities Beyond the Classroom, and I'm here to share more with you all about who we are at Activities Beyond the Classroom and programs that we provide to Cincinnati youth. At Activities Beyond the Classroom, our mission is to help students succeed through equitable opportunities in arts, athletics, and wellness that build character, ignite passions, and instill values to last a lifetime. We reach our mission by supporting schools in the greater Cincinnati area by providing arts, athletics, and STEM activities to youth free of cost. We are intentional in forging relationships, strong relationships with schools, principals, community partners, and funders throughout the city. And we also work with schools to pilot new programs and initiatives that reach over 15,000 students annually. To help schools free up money for academics, we do a lot of fundraising where we raise millions of dollars each year for arts, athletics, and other activities that you can see here on the slide. If you look at the chart here, you will notice that 83 cents of every dollar raised does go back into programming for students. Okay, this slide here Do not strain your eyes to read this slide. We are not responsible for you straining your eyes, okay? This is a snapshot of the partnerships that we have with different community partners, different businesses throughout the city. Nothing that we do is in a silo. Everything that we do try to find a partner, someone who is already doing the work well, or someone who we can collaborate with. We never want to recreate a program if there's already something that's in place that's successful that we can refer our students to. And one of our truest forms of collaboration is resource coordination, which is basically, first I will say resource coordination is in partnership with Cincinnati Public Schools. For this program is about connecting schools with community and schools serving as hubs of resources for families. Each school is assigned a resource coordinator that works with the school administration to identify needs of the school and go out into the community to identify community partners to bring resources back into the school to service those students and families. We are the lead agency, or we have 14 resource coordinators at 14 different CPS schools with focusing on 4 major areas, including academics, health and well-being, community engagement, parent and family engagement. We do engage over 250 partners for this program, and this program does reach over 5,000 students and families annually. And another area where we collaborate with our member services program. And here we manage 225 funds, unique funds throughout Cincinnati. Each of the funds are focused on providing opportunities for youth across the city. By ABC Access, their fund manager, and by doing so, we alleviate the member services and the fund, I'm sorry, saying this wrong. Let me start over. We are the fiscal sponsorships of 225 funds throughout the city. By doing so, the actual fund managers are allowed to focus on actually delivering the programs and services to youth across the city. A few examples are on your screen here. One is the Ben Carlson Byrne Scholarship Foundation Fund that focuses on providing private music lessons to students. The next is Fourth Wall Youth Studios, which is a digital media and storytelling initiative. And the other is Project Connect, which you all heard about earlier. And then there are other ways that we support youth throughout the city. It could be through fundraising and our capital projects. One example of this would be we were the lead fundraiser for the renovation over at the South Evandale playing field. Or another example is when ABC applied for the Impact 100 grant, received the Impact 100 grant, and we were able to help renovate the MAC over at Hughes. Another example of this would be receiving donations to purchase a scoreboard at the brand new Cleveland Parker Field that's located at the Evandale Recreation Center. So what are some of our after-school programs, you may ask? Well, I have an answer for that. The first program is our ABC Fine Arts Clubs, which is in partnership with Cincinnati Public Schools Fine Arts Department. I would say that this is one of my favorite programs. You'll probably hear me say that about every program, though. This program, we work with students during the day and after school at schools that are underserved in the arts. The next program is my favorite program. It is known as ABC Clubs, where we design a program that meets and fits into the culture of the school that we're working with, the specific school where we're working with. And we invite up to 65 students per program to participate in 3 days of after-school enrichment. The programs do include everything from athletics to STEM to any after-school activity that you can think of. And students in this program, they do receive a healthy snack and dinner before going home. Our next program is the martial arts program, which is my favorite program. We are teaching martial arts to students in grades K through 6. The students do meet twice per week, and we are teaching them. This is non-contact martial arts, so a lot of this program is focusing on character development, discipline, those things. We're excited to have that program in a few schools across the Cincinnati Public School District. Our next program is driver's education. This program we did pilot last year at Aiken High School. It was a very successful program, and we have since then received from a lot of schools across the city requests to expand this program. And then
Okay, Ms. Stallings, let me just stop right there just for a second.
Yes.
Because we were talking about driver's ed earlier. So is there a plan to expand this driver's ed program across other schools?
Yes, we are currently looking for funding to expand the driver's education program across the city of Cincinnati. I know for sure that we have at least 10 schools that have reached out to us for this program, and we haven't expanded because of funding, but we are currently looking for funding.
Okay, let's talk about that. Okay.
And next, the next program is our World Languages program. This program is in partnership with Cincinnati Public Schools World Languages Department, where we are teaching students after school ASL Sign Language, Spanish, and French, as well as teaching adults from the community, school staff, and parents either English or Spanish. And then that brings us to athletics. We do have an ABC Youth Soccer program where we work with students that are primarily in 3rd through 6th grades for this program. We partner with FC Cincinnati for this program. ABC Youth Tennis is the next program where we also work with students in 4th through 6th grades after school. Students do have the opportunity to attend the Western and Southern Open in August, the big tournament out in Mason. And we usually take a big group out there so they can experience a professional competition. And then there's the Swimming for Safety program, which is, again, one of my favorites. This program is in partnership with the CRC, and we primarily work with kids in K through 3rd grades, primarily teaching students how to be safe in and around water, how to identify the side of the pool, how to doggy paddle to the side of the pool. This is a program that is also been requested a lot in the past few years, so we would also like to expand this program. I will say the kids over at Taft Elementary, where we have this program, they do receive swim lessons during the school day, so they are able to miss a special and come over to the pool. ABC and the CRC, we both in partnership provide all of the supplies and equipment that are needed for all of our programs. And that brings me to the CPS partnership, where we employ 16 athletic directors and we manage the athletic funds. And then the last program here is Wellness for Student Athletes, where we are incorporating nutrition, food, and mental health initiatives into all of our athletic programs. Then there are the citywide initiatives, where we are, for the last 20 years, we've solely been providing activities and programs inside of Cincinnati Public Schools. And as we enter our next 20 years of ABC, we are expanding the vision of helping children while they are not at school. So some of our current initiatives include installing tech centers at Cincinnati Recreation Commissions so that students and families will have access to high quality technology. Other partnerships that we have would include our partnerships with Hamilton County, where we are partnering with them on their Inspire and the Beyond Your Imagination programs, as well as the KISSER program. That one is in partnership with CPS, where we are working with those students experiencing foster care, making sure they are engaged and enrolled in extracurricular activities.
Ms. Stallings, can you tell us what the KISR stands for?
Yes.
Or is it Kids Enrolled?
Kids
No, that doesn't make sense. Okay, sorry.
It's okay. It's KISSER, Kids in School Rule. And that is in partnership with Cincinnati Public Schools. There are additional students that we do work with that are experiencing foster care throughout Hamilton County. It's probably another 50 that we're currently working with, and that partnership is with JFS. But these are all students experiencing foster care, and we want to make sure that they are also receiving and participating in extracurricular activities. And then last, we are collaborating with 5 other organizations on a grant from Interact for Health to learn more from teams of how we can assist with implementing mental health supports through our programs. I do want to thank you all again for your time. And before I leave, I do want to invite you all to the CPS International Jazz Festival hosted by ABC on March 9th at 7 p.m. at the Aronoff Center. There are 150 CPS students that can't wait to be on stage and perform for you all. So thank you again.
I went last year. It's phenomenal. I invite everybody. You have to come see this. Fantastic.
Thank you again for your time. I will share my contact information here, and if there are any questions, I'll take them at this time.
Okay, any questions or comments? I mean, I didn't know all of this was going on, and so I wanted to make sure everybody could see what ABC does. I told Ms. Stallings, I said, I just can't believe you all are doing all of this. And President Bolton was saying that it started with the foundation 20 years ago, and just, I mean, it's exploded. So, and my introduction was at the concert last year at the Aronoff. And the young people were just phenomenal. There was an artist who came from Spain to work with them. Oh, it was just fantastic. Okay, Vice President Weinberg.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming. It's always a pleasure when you all, well, both of you, when you come and you just really let us all know what ABC has to offer. You do a tremendous job with our students, and we just want to thank you so much and just keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, Councilmember Albee, go right ahead. Oh, Councilmember Albee, and then Dr. McCree, Dr. Moffitt.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Good to see you again. So one thing on just the previous slide, slide 12, there's a bullet there that says teen gun violence prevention. I was just wondering if you could expand a little bit more on what that's referring to.
Yes, so we are looking to expand our programs to offer something productive for students, for kids to do during out of school time. We are currently working on a few grants with other organizations to provide out of school time programming, primarily right now in the downtown area. We are also working with Hamilton County on a few initiatives to respond to or prepare for or get ahead of teen gun violence.
Thank you. My office will be in touch.
Thank you.
I wanted to also point out that Sally Grimes, the executive director, is here. I didn't know if you wanted to say anything. You're welcome to if you'd like to come to the microphone and say anything. Okay, you're good. Okay. Okay, just wanted to make sure we acknowledge you though, and thank you so much. Dr. Moffitt.
So I was actually going to do that and say thank you to Mrs. Stallings for being here and sharing. I think that ABC is kind of like a hidden gem. I don't think people know a lot about what you all do and the magnitude that you do what you do and how well you do the magnitude of what you do. So I welcome every opportunity to give you all space to be able to share that. I'm going to take this selfish mic plug to say, can you put that date back on the screen for March the 9th?
Absolutely.
And make certain that we invite everyone out. I brought my mom 2 years ago. I didn't get a chance to go last year, but I brought my mom, and she has been talking about that ever since, because it was an opportunity for just, I'm gonna say elderly, but don't tell my mom, don't tell her I said called her old, but she's disengaged with the students, and she was so impressed with the work that you all are doing with the concert and how well it was put on. So I want to make sure that the community knows that this is an opportunity to come out and see the stuff that our kids are learning. You would not believe, if you closed your eyes, you wouldn't know that those were students up there.
Yeah.
Because it's just wonderful, wonderful. So thank you for what you do for our schools and the community. And I will be there. I got the date and the
March
time down
9th.
now, so mark your calendars.
7 p.m.
7 p.m.
All right, March 9th, 7 p.m. at the Aeronaut. Any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you so much. We are running over time. And so I think the only other item before we get to public comment is about the railway sale, which we can talk about more at the next meeting. I'll just say real quickly, if you Google Cincy on Track, C-I-N-C-Y on Track, you will see the proposed plan. So as you know, the proceeds from the sale of the Cincinnati Southern Railway by state law can only be spent on existing infrastructure, repair, modification, or replace. And so recreation centers are one of the top things that really need help. And so if you look at just a conservative estimate over 10 years, there should be additional capital dollars of $250 million over a 10-year period. The priorities are in 5 areas. At this point, it's proposed by our city manager's office that we do $40.7 million for parks, and then $27.6 million for recreation centers, which is really the question. $101 million for streets and sidewalks, transportation infrastructure, public services, including police and fire stations. That's $49.6 million, and then for health, $31.1 million. And so, but we could talk more about that. I don't know that we need to go into a lot of detail now, except to let you know, the important thing that we always want to emphasize that I know all council members are concerned with, as is our mayor and as is our city manager, and Councilmember Johnson, I know, will definitely ask about this as well. But equity is just a huge part of this. And so what the city manager has said is that one thing we have to be sure of is that the investment is distributed across all demographics with particular focus on underserved people and communities. So that is, our mayor always says equity must underlie everything we do, so that when the city manager laid out a proposed plan for how the funds would be spent, she said, let's start with equity. Let's make sure our underserved communities get served. And so just to answer the question, our rec centers are definitely a big part of this. But we could talk more. The sale's going to happen sometime in the spring. It's going to take some time before we get the money. So I don't think we have to talk about all of that tonight, but just to assure you that there are plans in place. And you can Google Cincy, C-I-N-C-Y on Track, or you can go to the Cincinnati website, cincinnati-oh.gov, and you can put in Cincy on Track, or you can put in railway sale, and this information will come up for you. But we'll just put it on the agenda for the next quarterly meeting to talk more about. Okay, before we get to public comment, I'd like to say, looking at our agenda, there are 3 presentations that need to be filed, as well as the ad hoc committee report that Dr. Moffitt has passed out to us. Okay, well so we're not filing that. So we're not filing that ad hoc report. It is on the Cincinnati Public Schools website. So, okay, so we will file those 3 presentations that are here somewhere. Okay, I know Miss Andrews is saying get it together over here. Okay. So item 1, presentation that was submitted from Rebecca Beach, Director of Project Connect. Without objection, we'll put that on for filing. Any objection? Hearing none, that will be filed. Item number 2 is a presentation from Rachel Stallings for activities beyond the classroom. Without objection, we'll put that on for filing. And then presentation number 3, presented by Superintendent Ironetta Wright about internet access that we did not actually see, but as we said, we will put that on without objection, put that on for filing so everyone has access to that, and we will get back. So quickly before we close and then get to public comment, because we do have 2 people here who want to speak. We have several items that we're going to come back with. One, just to follow up, President Bolton and I and anyone else interested will connect with our SORTA CEO, Daryl Haley, to talk about the dismissal issue. AAA is interested in hearing and talking more about bringing back driver's ed, and now we see that activities beyond the classroom has driver's ed as well, so we'll gather that information. And I know Councilmember Jeffries is heading up that movement with our city council, so we'll make sure we get that information to him. Section 8 vouchers, there's that legal question, and so our attorney, our solicitor, John Vogt, is going to give us more information about that. I have here mental health, but I think we don't have a follow-up item except just to, always keep it at the forefront. There's not a to-do item from that. School nurses, we're going to get the schedule and get that to our city manager. Crossing guards, whether or not they should be city employees or CPS employees, with the partnership with the city for training. That's a conversation that's going to happen. And then internet funding, Lee Fox from Alta Fiber said he wants to make sure everybody is served. And so we're going to take a look at where the needs are. The superintendent is giving us addresses so we can see what's available in those areas. And we'll follow up with that partnership with Alta Fiber and really appreciate it. And then finally, with the topic that Vice President Weinberg brought up about the need for more drug education in the schools. So Councilmember Johnson and Councilmember Albee with Vice President Weinberg and anyone else who's interested are going to work on what we can do about more drug education in the school and report to Councilmember Johnson's committee in about a month. So, okay, all right. So with that, without any other comments, we're going to close the agenda and go to public
Madam
comment.
Chair, just
Yes,
very
Councilmember
quickly, thank you very much for this gathering. I just think this needs to be said to the school board members and the council members. This isn't just a gathering. This is not just a meeting. I really do pray the citizens of Cincinnati are paying attention to the information that has been dispersed and that continuously is talked about in these chambers and at the school board. 84% of these young people that are attending Cincinnati public schools are living in economically disadvantaged households, and we heard 10% of them are homeless. This is all hands on deck. Despite the fact if you have a child in Cincinnati public school or a grandchild, this concerns every citizen in this city. It should if you have a heart or a conscience. I know CPS doesn't have endless amount of money just like the city of Cincinnati. But everybody in this city can play a role in helping to assist these tremendously talented young people that get up every day disadvantaged. Not everyone in the Cincinnati public school is, I'm not saying that, but those that need help, be willing to get out of your comfort zone and help. The schools that need help, be willing to get out of your comfort zone and provide help. Just as I sit on this dais and prayerfully provide assistance to the citizens, we all have a part to play in assisting the Cincinnati public school system. I'm passionate about it because I'm a product of CPS, and I'm proud of that. The future of this city relies on the young people that are being educated in this city.
Right.
So we all have a role to play. Get out of your comfort zone and put your hand toward helping these tremendously talented young people that need an assist. The teachers, the superintendent, the school board, the principals, they all need an assist. And I pray the citizens of this great city are paying attention to that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. And we should have done this reminder earlier, but Superintendent Wright has the Be Present initiative, encouraging everybody from the community to sign up to volunteer to do something in our schools. You don't need a special degree. You don't need special training. You just really need to take a little time and come into our CPS schools and work with our students. So look for Be Present on the Cincinnati Public School website. Thank you so much for that. Okay. That ends the agenda portion. We have public comment, as you know, and I want to thank our two commentators. Thank you for being so patient and waiting. You will have the privilege of the floor for 2 minutes. Bless you.
Thank you.
And so our first speaker is Lorraine Dean. Or is it Laurie Dean? Lorraine, it is Lorraine Dean. It's a pretty name. Our first speaker is Lorraine Dean, and so Ms. Dean, you have privilege of the floor for 2 minutes, and thank you so much for waiting, and thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you.
Thank you for allowing me this chance to speak. I will rush through a situation that is very difficult. My co-parent of 28 years had a heart emergency at Covedale School on April 26, 2023. He collapsed. There were 8 school staff present, including the principal, Miss Kipp. He was not giving any basic life-saving care for over 7 minutes. The first person to call 911, Miss Allen, diagnosed him as a seizure, and they asked her, the 911 operator asked her, would you like first aid instructions or help? She said no and got off the phone. The second person to call was Miss Atkinson, the school secretary at Covedale. That was at 12:10. She said to the operator, I don't know if he's conscious. Dante, is he conscious? And Dante, whoever that is, said that he was. He was not. He was dying on the floor with no pulse. The Fire Chief Mooney from Green Township has told me that when they got there, Dorian Adams, my co-parent of 28 years, was on the floor with no pulse, and not one person at Covedale School was giving him any chest compressions, using the AED, no rescue breaths. So he said that he does not call out school staff because they are lay persons, but what he did was offer to get them trained, and he did that this year. Dan Howling, it's Hoyling, the legal counsel for Cincinnati Public Schools, sent me the paper that says who was trained. There was nobody that had had any training since 2019 on AED use. 2 people that had had.
I'm so sorry. This is, it's a heart-wrenching story, and I'm so sorry about that. I'm not sure who here can help with that, but we'll check. And I have to tell you, the only reason that just to be fair, we have to stop you at 2 minutes, but we can talk afterwards. So we won't just leave you in the lurch. Okay. Okay, Miss Dean, Miss Dean, I am so sorry about this, and I don't. Okay, but let me say, I don't want you to feel disrespected. This is. Okay. Okay, Ms. Dean, this is, okay, this is definitely a tragedy, and we are so sorry about this. We are sorry, and we will follow up. We will follow up with you on this. I just don't want to disrespect you by rushing you, but we do have the 2-minute limit. We will follow up. We'll follow up and talk to you for sure. It is a tragedy, and we're so sorry. And thank you, Ms. Dean, thank you so much for coming. Okay, we're going to have to go to our next speaker, and that is David Hafner. And then I can just ask one of my staff members if you could please get Ms. Dean's contact information. We definitely will follow up with Ms. Dean and learning more about what happened and seeing if there's any way we can help. So thank you so much for coming, and we're so sorry about that. Is Dave Hafner still here? Okay.
See him in the chamber.
Okay, well, that concludes our public comment. Any final comments? So I just want to thank everyone.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you for
Madam
coming.
Chair.
We have a lot of work to follow up on, a lot to do, and we will definitely let people know when our next meeting is. We appreciate you coming, and those who tuned in on City Cable as well. It's really important that we collaborate on issues that we can work together on, and so this Healthy Neighborhood CPS combination meeting is something that is important to us in the city. I know important to you on the school board. So thank you so much for all you do, and thank you everyone, all of you, for being here. We appreciate it. And that concludes our meeting.